Hey Fuggers, what's up? Today we're looking at the new cards revealed on the Hearthstone Twitter. 12 cards were revealed again today from 4 different classes, same as yesterday, and they look pretty exciting. But before we get into that, if you want to be a Fugger, go ahead and subscribe to my channel down below, and while you're down there, leave a like and a comment, and hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date on all my new content, which I do release weekly. It's absolutely painless and free to do so, and you can always unsubscribe later if you decide you don't like my content, so please, every subscription helps, and it means the world to me if you did. Alright, with that said, let's get into some card reviews. Alright, the first card we're going to look at is a 1-mana spell for Shaman called Blazing Transmutation. It's a fire spell and it says choose a minion. Discover one that costs 1 more to transform it into. Now, why this is a scary card is because of a Goldshire Knoll still being in Standard, at least for a few months. Shaman already has an Evolve deck that's pretty strong right now, and adding this card to it is definitely going to make it a lot better. And there's going to be some really disgusting high rolls with Null when you get to choose what 10-drop you evolve into. Evolving into things like Neptulon and Thaddeus is just going to be insane and game-breaking. Of course, it is entirely possible that I'm wrong about how this card works with Null, and because it's a Discover, you actually can't evolve a Null, because there are no 11-cost cards to evolve into. That's entirely possible, but if it doesn't work that way, and you can evolve into any 10-drop of your choice, that's going to be really insane. The next card we're looking at here is another Shaman card, Cold Storage. It's a Frost spell this time, and it freezes a minion and adds a copy of that minion to your hand. Now, there was a card in Rostakon's Rumble called Seance for Priest that was 2 mana and added a copy of a minion to your hand. This is strictly better as long as you're using it on an enemy minion. If you use it on your own minion, it does have the drawback of freezing it, but it is still cheaper, so it makes it a lot more flexible of a card, and Seance was a really good card when it was in Standard. I believe this card is going to be really strong. Another interesting thing about this card is that it's actually just Marabi, basically, as a spell, which I think is kind of funny, because that card was pretty awful. But this spell seems pretty good. Our last Shaman card here is a 3-mana 2/3 Elemental Murloc called Frostfin Chomper. And it has Battle Cry. If you played an Elemental last turn, summon 3 1/1 Murlocs. Now, a lot of people on Twitter were saying this wasn't very good and that Murloc Shaman got nothing. I really disagree. I think this card's actually quite strong for Murlocs because Murlocs tend to want a lot of bodies on board, and it's going to be really strong for cards like Nofin, which capitalize on having a wide board and a lot of minions to buff. And in Wild, you also have Everyfin is Awesome as another way to capitalize on this. Also, War Leader really likes 1/1 Murlocs on board. I just think this is a really solid addition to Murloc Shaman if there are enough Murloc Elementals that you can fit in. I don't think you're going to be running actual Elementals to make this work most of the time, but maybe there's something there. But I do think if there are Murloc Elemental Dual Tribe minions, and there's enough of them, that this becomes an insane card. In Standard, I think it's just really good, and there's going to be an Elemental Murloc deck because of how good this is into Nofin. It just has to see some sort of play, in my opinion. Alright, next up we have our first Rogue card, Ransack, a 0-mana spell for Rogue. It says deal 1 damage to a minion. If you played a card from another class this turn, deal 4 instead. Now, if anyone remembers Rise of Shadows, there was a card in that called Vendetta that was 4 mana to deal 4 damage to an undamaged minion, and if you had a card from another class in hand, it would cost 0. This is very similar to that in design, except it's more useful, honestly, when its condition isn't met, and the condition is a little bit harder. But I do think it's a better card overall because of how much more flexible it is, and it can hit damaged minions, which is a really powerful thing for a card like this because most of these cheap cards that deal damage to minions do require an undamaged minion in Rogue. I believe this will be a powerful addition to the Thief Rogue deck. Unfortunately, Maestra was changed, so I don't think this will be seeing any play in that deck, because that deck no longer exists. It would have been a good addition to that, because unless I'm misunderstanding, you could have played a rogue card and then played this to deal 4 damage in the same turn, because the rogue card was not from your class when you played it. It may update to detect whether the card was from the class you are now. That's possible, I'm not sure. But providing it did work that way, it would have been quite strong. Oh boy, this next card is the stuff of my nightmares. A 1-mana 1/3 pirate undead for rogue called Jolly Roger that says after your hero attacks, summon a 1/1 undead pirate. Now this card is going to be an absolute menace in Wild. There was a very similar card that already existed called Sharkfin Fan that's a 2-mana 2/2 that summons minions on the same condition. But this is just beyond insane how much better it is than that. A 1-mana 1/3 is a premium stat line, and that effect was very strong when paired with something like Cannon. I think this is going to be all over Wild, and I think Pirate Rogue is now taking over the meta again as the complete aggro king. Alright, our next and last card for Rogue here is Stitched Creation, a 3-mana 1/1 undead that has quite the stack of keywords on it. It has Combo, gain +2/+2, Infuse 2, gain +3/+3, and Mana Thirst 8, gain +4/+4. So in total, this card goes up to a 10/10 if you meet all of these conditions. Now, I don't know how good this card's going to actually be, if we're being honest. It does get the +3/+3 from the Infuse 2, so its easiest to meet condition, I think, on curve is going to make it above the curve stat-wise, because it will be a 3-mana 4/4, so it's possible this is a really good tempo card. And if you are on the coin, you can play a 2-mana 6/6 on turn 2. That's pretty strong, so I wouldn't discount it at all. And in Wild, it's possible that this is just going to be really strong because of cards like Foxy Fraud enabling it. So I definitely wouldn't sleep on this card. I do think the Mana Thirst is going to be completely irrelevant most of the time, though. Alright, our first card for Druid here is Rake, a new 1-mana spell for Druid that says give your hero +2 attack this turn, deal damage equal to your hero's attack to a minion. Now, I don't know if any of you remember the card Savage Strike, but that card is just crying in the corner right now, because this card is 10 times better. Savage Strike only did the second half of this card's effect. This card is bundling Pounce and Savage Strike together. It's an insane effect, in my opinion, because Savage Strike was actually decent, especially in the questline deck, where you were gaining insane amounts of attack every turn, so you could just use it to shut down your opponent's board and go face. This is just way better than that, and way more useful in the deck, because you're actually also furthering your game plan when you play it by gaining that attack. I think this card is going to see some serious meta play in Wild, and it might even revive the questline deck in Standard. Alright, the next card here for Druid is Death Beetle, a 6-mana 6/6 undead beast with Taunt and Mana Thirst 11, gain +4/+4 in charge. Now this card is terrifying to me, not because of the actual card itself, but because of that Mana Thirst and what it implies. You see, Guff is rotating very soon, which means that this Mana Thirst effect is either going to be unusable for the majority of this card's time in Standard, or they're planning to add more ramp effects to Druid that allow you to go over 10 mana, which I do not want in the game. I do not want a repeat of Guff. I would love for Druid to just stay at 10 mana for the rest of its Standard existence. Guff is so frustrating to play against, especially in its unnerfed form, and I really just don't want to go through that again. And in Wild, I'm sure it'll be even worse when they do print this new effect they're planning on, if they are, because Wild will also have access to Guff, and Twig and Sphere and all of that stuff. The one silver lining to that is that Wild Druid is already so busted, I don't know if it makes a significant difference. As for the card itself, though, I do think it's a sort of decent finisher for some kind of Druid deck in Standard. I don't know if it gets there in Wild, because Wild is just so fast. Maybe it does something, though. It's entirely possible. And it is a minion, so it's possible that you can do some sort of Aviana combo with it, where you Aviana, then drop Ixlid, and drop 2 of these, and go face for 40 damage. That could be something, but it seems pretty slow and bad. I don't know, though. Maybe there's something there. Maybe someone smarter than me can come up with something, but I don't have any ideas for Wild for this card. This last card for Druid, though, is going to be an absolute staple in so many Druid decks. It's a 6-mana nature spell for Druid, and it says draw 3 cards. But it also has infuse 6, this costs 1. Now that is an insane effect. A 1-mana Nourish is crazy in Druid, and it's not that hard to activate with cards like Scale of Onyxia and Flipper Friends, and in Wild Spreading Plague. I think this card is going to be absolutely everywhere, especially because it's a nature spell, so it works with Topior, and it's tutorable by Widowbloom Seedsman. This card is just absolutely insane to me, and it just has all of the aspects of a Druid card that make it see play historically, so I think this is a very good card and one to watch out for. Next up here, we have a Murloc support card for Warlock. 2 mana, Nofin's Imp-ossible. It says, give all friendly demons and Murlocs Death Rattle summon a 2/2 Implock. Now, I did say it's a Murloc support card, but it is mostly, in my opinion, an Implock support card because Imps is just a much stronger deck, and this is absolutely insane with cards like Witching Hour, summoning you a board full of Imps that then get 2/2s inside of them. It's half the cost of Soul of the Forest, which has the same effect, except the Treant tribe is probably weaker than the Imp or Murloc tribe, so this card is just absolutely insane. And I do think it will also be strong in Murloc Warlock, but I just don't think it will be nearly the level it will be in Implock. That said, it is also possible that some kind of hybrid list comes out of this in Standard. This is a very powerful effect, and being able to take advantage of it on a full board is incredibly valuable, so maybe it's worth it to try and mix them together and create something out of that. Our next card here is Suspicious Peddler, a 2-mana 2/3 undead for Warlock that says Battle Cry, discover a 1-cost card. If your opponent guesses your choice, they get a copy. Now, we all remember these guys from Castle Nathria who would give your opponent the opportunity to guess what you were getting. Now, these effects weren't incredibly strong, and this is only giving you a 1-mana card, so I don't think it's that powerful. Dark Peddler was printed in an era where that was a much stronger effect, and there were a lot less 1-mana cards, so you could reliably get some things. So it was actually a decent card. This card gives your opponent the opportunity to gain resources, and it also discovers a 1-cost card with no added benefit from the Dark Peddler, who was printed ages ago. I just don't think this holds up for competitive play. It does have 1 additional health, but that drawback of giving your opponent a card some of the time just is not worth it, in my opinion. I do not think this card is going to be very good, and if it sees play, it's going to be because it's undead. Finally, our last card here is a 3-mana spell for Warlock called Plague Eruption. This is a discard support card that says deal 2 damage to all minions. If you've discarded a card this game, deal 1 more. Now, this card seems incredibly underwhelming to me. At its base level, this card is essentially a Volcanic Potion, which was printed in Mean Streets of Gadgetzan, so that was some years ago. And with the added bonus from discard, it only becomes a Hellfire, only it doesn't go face. So I really don't think this card is going to see serious competitive play. It is possible that this sees play just because it's an AoE, and Warlock loves removal cards, And it is possible that that secondary effect is activated in some sort of control list, because you could be playing that 3-mana spell that was printed recently that draws 3 cards and then discards one of them. If you're discarding cards throughout the course of a game because that's a good draw option, then that activates this card, making it a pretty decent removal option. I just don't think it's incredible, but I do think it's serviceable, so it is possible that it just sees play because of that. Alright, that's it for the card reviews. Now on to star ratings. Blazing Transmutation is a 5-star card. Cold Storage is a 4-star card. Frostfin Chomper, providing they print more elemental murlocs, is a 3-star card. Ransack is a 4-star card. Jolly Roger is a 5-star card. Stitched Creation is a 3-star card. Rake is a 3-star card. Death Beetle is a 3-star card. Life from Death is a 5-star card. Nofin's Imp-ossible is a 4-star card. Suspicious Peddler is a 1-star card. Plague Eruption is a 2-star card. Well, Fuggers, that's it for my card review. So remember to subscribe to my channel, drop a like, hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date on all my new content, and I'll catch you all next time. Stay safe, everyone. Peace.